Hi everyone, this is Demari. Welcome to my YouTube channel. And today I'm going to be doing the Shadow Work Tarot reading for the sign of Pisces. Now, as you know, last weekend we had a really powerful full moon in your sign, Pisces. So I imagine for you that was quite a powerful realization that you had over the weekend in regards to some specific aspects that needed revealing in your life. Could be thoughts, feelings, behaviours, circumstances surrounding yourself or an individual. Whatever was in hiding was then brought to the surface. So now the reason I love doing the shadow work readings mid-month is that after those powerful revelations with the full moon transition, you're in a better position to then take that knowledge and then apply the work in a way that will help you to do the healing and to process so you can move on in a more positive direction, okay? So to begin with, I'm going to be using the Dark Mirror Oracle deck to get the gist, well, the main essence and energy of what it is that your shadow self is revealing to you at this time. Then using the Wild Unknown Tarot to obviously clarify and get more information as to what is happening. And then using the Intuitive on top to clarify further any messages that require it. So let's just get stuck in then. So what is it that the shadow self is revealing to Pisces at this time? Okay. Gilded regrets. So you see how she's got like this silvery, thorny crown that's on top of her head, but it's almost like coming out of her head, right? And she's kind of like, looks like she's been crying, as you can see. She's full of remorse, okay? So it feels like on some level, it's not that your regrets or the pain you feel regarding a circumstance is false in any way, but it may be that that you're on some level using this circumstance to try and get a specific response from people. Or maybe you're so worried about how you're perceived that you're trying your best to mask certain aspects of it so you're seen in a certain light, right? Or even just that you're not allowing yourself to fully process and move on from what it is that happened or whatever it is you felt that you've done, right? That you're keeping yourself caged within it. Because as much as it's painful, it's easier than trying to move on or trying to heal whatever it is, right? You feel like it's easier to be in this pain and this sense of remorse than it is to try and ask for forgiveness and heal, okay? So let's have a look what else is going on beneath the surface. Because there's never just one thing, right? There's always multiple things. But I like to pull two cards, so it usually gives me an idea of what's at play here. Okay, so you also have Downcast Pride. So yeah, I feel like this is directly mirroring each other. You see how they're almost like two opposites of the same spectrum, right? So I feel like this is kind of what you're projecting, and this is how you're feeling, right? This is your true feelings. That that your pride is what's preventing you from asking for that forgiveness, right? That it's preventing you from really looking at it objectively and you know, doing whatever you have to do to make it right, okay? To put a close to what happened so you can move forward. And I feel like your pride is getting in the way. You would rather uproot yourself and keep yourself locked into this self-made prison than put yourself out there, be more vulnerable than you already feel, and ask for forgiveness and try to mend this broken connection or mend the circumstance that you find yourself in, okay? And that's the thing, you're so turned inward, you're retreating to the point where people have no idea what it is that you actually think or feel about the circumstance, because you're just so focused on avoiding the very thing that you need to do to free yourself from this circumstance, right? So you really need to spend some time with that energy and work on it, and realize that actually no one benefits from you sitting in this energy. You don't benefit from it. The people that are affected don't benefit from it. Everyone is just miserable, okay? Like, everyone is just miserable in this situation. So the best thing you can do is just, put down your pride, step forward and say, look, I made a mistake. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Can you forgive me? If not, then I accept that, and I'll do what I need to do to make sure that doesn't happen again, right? That's the kind of energy you need to embody, courage, rather than cowardice, I feel. Because that's kind of what you're doing a little bit. I'm not trying to be offensive, Pisces, but the way you're approaching it right now is a little bit cowardly. And, you're going to lose more respect that way than if you just step forward and say, look, I fucked up, okay? Like, I'm human. I fucked up. This isn't okay. I'm sorry. I want to work on it. I want to fix it. I want to do something positive from this, right? You'll get a lot more respect that way if you just, step forward, okay? So, okay, let's see what the circumstances is, because this is some heavy energy. So yeah, we need to see what's going on here, Pisces, what it is that you're contending with at this time. So this column here is in relation to the week that we just left behind, okay? And this middle column here is in relation to the week that we're currently in. And this is the final week of September, the last full week that we'll have next week, okay? All right. So let's see what we got here. So to begin with, early last week, you had the Lovers card. So this could very well be a relationship, but it doesn't have to be. Just because it's the Lovers card, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily a relationship. But it's likely that it was, because it feels like you betrayed someone in some way, and it had a very detrimental effect on the person and yourself. So it'll either be a family member or a partner, I feel. It was someone on that kind of level that you feel you wronged in some way, and you just can't get past your pride to try and make it right. You're just wallowing in how you're feeling right now, but you know that it's had a very strong impact on the other person, right? So with that in mind, this could easily involve a Virgo, but not necessarily, just because of the messaging and the synchronicity with that. But it may be related to a Virgo, it may not be. Moving forward, I will clarify all this afterwards, by the way. So in the middle of last week, you had the Chariot. So I think in some ways you were forced to come forward to acknowledge your mistakes, but there's still some things about it that you're running from, okay? I feel like you're still running from the circumstance because you feel emotionally you're not equipped to deal with it, to deal with the repercussions of your actions, right? This is Cancer energy right here, so very, very emotional. Obviously, that's also water energy, so it's very relevant to you, Pisces. And that's what I feel. I feel like you're overwhelmed with emotion at this time, and that's why you're running. Rather than standing your ground and trying to make amends, you're just running from the circumstance. So in the position of the weekend, so over the full moon period, you had the Seven of Pentacles. So I think you really felt like you were putting in the work, that you were making the effort to build the foundations of this relationship, that you were invested emotionally, mentally, physically invested in this relationship. But in one instant, you just managed to crash it all down on top of you, right? That everything you built for was potentially going to waste, and that's why you freaked out, because you felt like you're losing everything, right? Everything you've poured into this relationship is potentially going to be lost, and that terrifies you. So rather than dealing with it and trying to save it, you're just running, you're just blindly running in panic. Okay, but we'll clarify this further in a moment. So where you're at currently for this week is the Devil in reverse. That's the card you got. So there is some self-deception here. It's illusionary. I feel like you've already painted the worst possible consequence in your mind. Like, you've painted in your mind the absolute worst case scenario that's going to come out from this circumstance, and you've run with it, and that's why you're running away, right? Because of that, because you're feared that all is lost, everything that you've poured in is gone to waste, right? But that's not necessarily true. But you won't know that if you continue to run, okay? You'll never know what could have been done, how it could have been saved, what the other person really thought and felt, if you just run blindly from it, okay? Just to save some kind of face, even though you're not doing that. That's actually the opposite of what you'd be doing. So, yeah. Moving on. So, the middle of the week, so going into tomorrow onwards, you have Judgment. So it's really, really important that you carefully consider your actions, your words, and your behavior at this time, because all of that is going to affect how this situation is resolved, and if it is resolved, okay? So it's really important that you're mindful of what it is that you're doing and saying at this time, because it bears weight. It's going to affect the consequences, right? So don't act on impulse. Don't allow your fear and your pride to make hasty decisions on your behalf, right? So going into the end of the week, you have the Three of Swords. So I feel like I feel like this is a complete mess of a situation, because there's communication coming from all angles, right? And I feel like it's just, while with this, the way in which the communication is coming in, it is impossible to come to any kind of solution, right? Because you're saying that, and then that person said this, and then your partner said that, but they were just repeating what so-and-so said, and then so-and-so said that to you because they felt that she meant that, and you know what I mean? Like, it's just nonsense, right? It's an absolute mess. You see how tangled it is, like the three bloody swords, right? Like, there's no clarity in that situation, whatsoever, okay? So that needs to be dropped. Like, that way of communicating is not going to help anybody, okay? And especially, like, if you have, say, for example, if you had an affair, cheating on your partner or something like that, the last thing you want is for the other person to be communicating with your partner. That's just going to make it so much worse, okay? Them putting in their input is not going to help the situation. So you really want to make sure that doesn't happen, okay? Because it's between the two of you, not the three of you. Even though it involved three people, it's up to you and your partner to straighten this situation out, okay? So if you know that this person is planning to communicate with your partner, advise them against it strongly, because it's just going to make the situation worse, okay? So only if that applies to you, of course. It could just be that other people are getting, sticking their nose in and trying to complicate things further, and that's the last thing you really want, okay? So going into the final week, then you have the Two of Wands in the upright. So I feel like you're kind of mirroring each other at this point. You're both feeling the loss, I think, the fear of the loss of the connection. So you're both like that. Your partner is going to be mirroring how you're being, right? But they feel how you feel. They feel the loss or the fear of the loss. They feel the desire to get that connection back, what was once had, right? But because you're being distant and fearful and unwilling to take action to try and rectify it, they're not willing to do that either, right? So they're literally mirroring what you're doing, and it's just causing distress for both of you, because what you want is just to get this connection back. So in the middle of the week, you have the Mother of Swords in reverse. So I feel like you may have actually disconnected at this point. Maybe you've left the home. Maybe they've left the home. Or if you're not living together, maybe you've just stopped communicating at this point, while you try and tend to your wounds, both of you. But I feel like neither of you are talking at this time. Like there's a break in communication, like a very strong, clear breakdown in communication, where you're just not even speaking at this time. Okay. But then in the end of the week as well, you have the Hierophant in reverse. So it may be that you're considering getting some marriage counseling if you are married, but the person is not willing to go through those channels. Or it could be that you're just not listening to the advice, the sound advice that's coming from a good place that will really help you to work on this situation and this connection with this person. And maybe you're not hearing the warnings, right? Or maybe you're not hearing what it is that this person is trying to show, like you're not seeing what this person is trying to show you of how you're making things worse, or how you're not considering what it is they want or need, right? But in some way, there is something that's trying to be communicated and is not being heard, is what's coming across in this card, right? With the Hierophant in reverse. Some opportunity to work on things is not being received by someone here. It could be you, it could be them, it could be both. But, in some way, someone or both of you is not willing or wanting to accept this communication, right? To try and work on things. Okay, let's see if we can get a bit more clarity then before we call it a day with the read. So, what's happening with the Lovers then? Because this definitely feels like a relationship to me. I mean, it's so obvious. But what is it that happened here? Yeah. You got the Two of Pentacles in reverse. So there was a break in... there was a cause for mistrust, okay? So I do feel like for some of you, this is definitely going to be someone cheated on someone else. Or there was something that was revealed over the time, over the last few weeks, maybe, that caused serious mistrust in the relationship and in the other person, okay? Or some circumstances that came about that got in between you two, right? It doesn't have to be someone did something behind the other person's back. It could be that some circumstance came about and it wasn't handled correctly, so that caused a wedge between you two. Or there were some other factors that seemingly were outside of your control, but that still managed to cause cause some distance, right? That caused some real conflict in some way. Let's see if I can get some more clarity. But I feel like it's something that really rocks the foundations of the home, right? The home life. Yeah, you got the Ten of Swords in the upright, so the end of one way of doing things, right? The end of communicating in such a way. So maybe there was a huge argument and something was said in anger or revealed in anger that created this ripple of mistrust, right? That just grew. Or something was communicated that affected the stability of your home life, right? And made you question what's going to happen with the relationship, because I do not know how we can go forward from here, right? After having this communication, right? So you're having to, find a new way of doing things or start completely afresh, okay? So what about the Chariot then, in the middle of last week? I got the Chariot again. So this could easily involve a Cancer, actually, because you got the Chariot twice. And you got the Four of Pentacles, so in reverse. So lacking in stability, the destruction of stability. So I think maybe it did come out that you or the other person had an affair with a Cancer, or has feelings for a Cancer. I don't know, I just see like with the double Chariot, honestly, there's a Cancer involved, or maybe you communicated that that your true feelings is for a Cancer, and that you're not in love with this person anymore. And that's why you got the Ten of Swords as well. You communicated that you wanted to end the relationship because you're in love with someone else. Damn. Some heavy energies, Pisces, my gosh. Okay, and you got the Five of Pentacles in the upright as well, clarifying the Seven of Pentacles from the weekend. So you felt like you had to break down your foundations, everything that you invested in, you're having to let go of. And it's leaving you feel like you have nothing, right? That you've just been left out in the cold, right? That you've had to take a loss. And you're just like, my gosh, like I invested so much time and energy into this thing, and now I'm having to take a big hit. Like, you know, I'm left with nothing almost. But that may be more indicative of how you feel rather than the reality of the situation. But that's how it's coming across to you, right? That you're having to take a big loss because of this communication that came out, because of this revelation. And I think it dawned on you over the weekend just how much you were letting go, right? With this truth coming out. Yeah, because you also got the Five of Swords in reverse, so removing yourself from conflict, and the Ten of Cups in reverse, so identifying the fact that this is the end of emotional cycle, that this connection with someone is coming to a close, right? And it may be that you initiated it, but maybe you've done it in the wrong way, or that you just communicated something which led to the breakdown of this relationship, and now you're just trying to pick up the pieces. It can resonate in various different ways, so just take it however it does, if it does. So what about the Devil in reverse? You got the Knight of Cups. Okay. So yeah, I mean, okay. This is not a good energy to have together. Because I feel like now you feel like, okay, I'm done with this situation, I've left the person. I can now go rushing towards this Cancer with my cup, right? I can be the knight in shining armor that they need. That's not how it's going to come across, just to let you know if you do that, or if you're doing that right now, or thinking of doing that right now. That's not how it's going to come across. It's going to come across as very toxic, that you don't have consideration for the feelings of others. The Cancer in question is not going to appreciate it if you just like basically dump this person, leave them in the lurch, knowing that they're very distraught over this, and then you're just rushing to like declare your love for someone else immediately after. Like, even if you've had feelings for this person for a long time, they're going to think that's shady as hell, and they're going to be mistrusting of that. Okay, so watch that energy, right? Even if you feel like you can't hold your feelings anymore for this person, don't go about it in that way, because it's going to backfire tremendously. Okay, so what else you got on here? Yeah, so really try and look at things clearly, okay? Don't let your emotions dictate how you approach this situation, because otherwise, like I said, it's not going to go the way you expect it. It will backfire, okay? So moving into the middle of the week now, so from tomorrow onwards, the Judgment card. You have the Page of Wands in reverse. So yeah, I feel like you're going to have to humble yourself down at this time. You're going to have to kind of keep a bit of a low profile, especially while you work through these toxic energies here. Because otherwise it's going to manifest some very unattractive behaviours like this, right? If you don't watch yourself. So really just go inwards and do the work, and think about what is the best possible way to deal with this circumstance, where you're going to at least walk away with some integrity and respect, rather than absolutely none at all, right? So really think about that and watch how you go about things, right? I think you're gonna have to kind of maintain a bit of a low profile for a couple of days while the dust settles, okay? See if there's anything else here. Yeah, you're going to have to exercise caution and patience, because there's a lot of emotions involved in this situation, Emotions are running very high right now. So the smart thing to do would be to take a step back and allow things to calm a little first before you do anything. Let the dust settle, okay? So let's move on then to the Three of Swords, the weekend. So there's definitely some miscommunication here, or some not very positive communication taking place here, involving more than one other person, I feel. Let's have a look. Okay, Wheel of Fortune in reverse. So, yeah. I think that because you may have been hasty in the way in which you approached this, that's why this communication has come about in this way. Because you're expecting solutions and answers straight away. You're expecting things to kind of patch over quicker than they're going to, because you just don't want to have to face it and deal with it anymore. You don't want to have to accept the responsibility for what's happening. But the fact is that, this is the path you kind of walk down, so you have to take the consequences that follow, right? So that's kind of what's being communicated here, that there are very real consequences to your actions. So you're going to have to, some things you're just going to have to face, okay? And, there may be some questions that are thrown at you by your significant other or previously significant other, that are hard to hear and answer, but you're going to have to do it anyway, because they need to know the truth in order to move forward, right? So they can really assess and think about what it is they want with the Six of Wands here, yeah? So it's important that you're very honest and you're open if they, ask you any questions in relation to that, because that will affect the outcome also, alright? Yeah. So you're going to have to lay yourself bare a little bit, even if it hurts, even if it stings, even if it means potentially losing the person anyway. This is the least you can do for them in this situation, and they deserve that, right? So you have to give them that transparency. Okay. So what about the Two of Wands in the upright then? Okay. Yeah, Ace of Pentacles, Ace of Cups. Where is my mind going, honestly? Ace of Cups. So, the loss of a significant connection is what you're both absolutely terrified about. You're scared that you've just lost the love of your life, and so are they, right? You're both terrified of the same thing. And that's why you're mirroring each other, because you're trying to protect yourselves from how you're feeling and the loss that you're feeling at this time. Yeah, but it's what you want more than anything, right? You want this connection. It is what you thought would give you the most happiness, and you still do. So you both want to work on this, I feel. But you may feel like You don't see how you could. It's somewhat dishonest, right? So you have to really assess what it is that you actually want. Do you want your previous partner, or do you want the Cancerian? Okay? Not just whoever's willing to go with you at the time. Okay? So who is it that you want? Because I feel like your partner is still in love with you, obviously. But they are not going to be treated like a plan B, right? That's not acceptable, and they're not willing to put up with that. So you have to really decide what it is that you want. Who do you want to be with, right? Okay, so let's have a look then at the Mother of Swords in the middle of the week. Mother of Swords in reverse, which is Queen of Swords. And you got the Seven of Pentacles in reverse. Yeah, so they cut you off essentially because they felt like, maybe they did feel like you were treating them as a plan B. And maybe they felt like you were treating them as a plan B, and that's why they cut you off. Because, you know, because you kind of was treating them like, oh, well, you know, I know I have them there, but I'm really curious about whether or not I can make it work with this person. And if not, then at least they're here, right? That's how they feel. Like they were a plan B. And, you know, that's creating so much emotional turmoil within themselves and making them question their worth. That even if you tried to extend your cup to them at this point now, they're probably going to reject it at the moment. Because they don't feel like it's coming from a place of sincerity, because you revealed that you had feelings for this Cancerian, right? Or this water sign, or whoever embodies this chariot energy, right? So that's why they're cutting you off. They're not communicating with you at this time, because they have a lot of processing and healing to do themselves, right? Okay, and what about the Hierophant in reverse then, finally, the end of the month? Okay, so you have the Nine of Pentacles in reverse. So yeah, I mean, they were trying, one person was trying, I feel, to mediate the situation, have mediation come into play in some shape or form, but the other person didn't want it. Okay, that's what I feel like. That the other person didn't want this. They wanted to cut their losses because they didn't want to get other people involved, if there was already people involved especially, or they just didn't want people involved, period. Or simply because they just feel like too much has already been lost, right? So they just want to move away from this situation at the moment. Yeah, the foundations come down, right? There's the tower is destroyed, okay? So they feel like everything they built with you, right? Everything they built with you has just come crashing down. So they're not willing to negotiate or mediate, okay? Because the damage is already done. That's what I'm getting. This is the message that's coming through really strong here. The damage is done. There's nothing that can be done to rectify this, okay? Let's see if there's any other messages here. Yeah, Four of Wands in reverse. So some of you it's going to end in divorce. Some of you it's separation. May be able to heal it over time, but it's definitely going to cause a separation for some time. For some of you it is the end of a relationship. But yeah, I just don't see this ending very well on that front. Not at this time. It may change, like I said, maybe when I do your October reading, it'll be very different. But as it currently stands in the month of September, yeah, they kind of want to call it a day at the moment. Sorry to say, Pisces, because they are really, they've been really affected by this revelation, this truth that came out about this Cancer, right? this Cancer energy. Yeah. And it's like, even though you didn't want to create these circumstances, this was not how you envisioned things or what you wanted, it's still the product of your doing, right? It's still you're making an environment, like a situation of your making. So you have to accept responsibility for that moving forward, okay? So I know that's a lot to digest. I know it's not the best reading, you know, in terms of what you want. But, you know, I have to show you what comes up and I have to be real with you. So you have the information and you can try and process it and figure out what you want to do. But obviously, you know, if you really want to try and heal this relationship, you're going to have to be prepared to put a lot of work in. It's all I will say, because you're not going to just convince them overnight that this can be fixed, right? It's going to take a lot of work and a lot of patience on your part, and I can't say for sure whether or not it will work, right? It just depends on the other person as well and what you do. But if you are looking to move towards this Cancer instead, then you're going to have to be very tactful about how you approach that this time. Because if you're not careful, you could end up losing both parties, okay? So, yeah, Pisces, wow. I hope this was helpful for you, for those it resonated with. Yeah, give it a like if it did. If you have any thoughts on this reading at all, let me know in the comments. And subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, we'll address it in your next read. I'm sure it will come up. At least some aspect of this, and we'll see what happens. But for now, take care, yeah?